Knowing that I'm as obsessed with Makoto Niijima as I am, is it any surprise that I would get the Makoto Niijima Persona 5 Dancing Star Knight figure? From Amakuni and Hobby Japan, yet again, we're receiving a figure of Makoto in a much different outfit. Now this outfit is canonically correct according to Persona 5 Dancing Star Knight, so weird or not, she has worn it. What a fun way to kind of blend this idea of her wearing an alternate uniform with the fact that of course she's in a music game. And seeing as Shoji Meguro is such a king among composers, the Persona music was perfect to be put in a game like this. And this should feel very familiar because Hobby Japan and Amakuni were the ones who also put out the first figure I reviewed in this series, which was her riding atop Johanna. And rather than the usual Phantom Thief outfit, we're getting a more rock and roll sort of grungy vibe because the Japanese really do believe that red and black is the only thematic colors for rock and roll. And while I don't have much experience with the Dancing Star Knight game, I've seen enough footage to recognize this outfit, and the fact that it's Makoto was enough reason for me to purchase. So let's find out if Hobby Japan can make a good enough figure to have me dancing all night, or if I should pick up a new hobby. So then, moving on to the figure itself, it looks like it all comes in one piece inside of this single blister. Initially, I wasn't that excited to get this one open, but now that I'm holding her in hand, she looks pretty good. It's not all perfect because I do think that from first impressions, her finishing is very strange. I don't really get what they did with her clothing here. The sculpting all over is actually very impressive. There are some areas where it's a little bulky, but I kind of expected that. The painting is what really gets me in certain spots. And this is one of the things about Amakuni that does bother me. I think they take some strange liberties in the way that they finish up a figure. Things that most companies, I feel, wouldn't decide that impulsively should be features. But before you ask, let's just do it. Oh, damn. I did not expect them to be blue. Now that's epic. And fulfilling the status quo of mediocrity, they gave us a plain black disc as her base, with some metal rods coming out of it. This design is awful, and the fact that she's only supported in one place by her single foot is a bit questionable, but the figure is light enough for this to maybe not be a problem. Still, I'm a bit irritated that they didn't make the base a shape or something. I mean, put some color on it, maybe even the plaid that's in her skirt, because that's a big theme in the Persona design scheme. For some reason, another company got the license for Anne in her dancing outfit, and the base for that is awesome. But I'm not gonna lie here, with her finally out of the packaging, I'm pretty impressed with this. I had no attachment to the dancing game, and I wasn't that fond of this design, but now that I have her, she's very charming. The appeal is definitely there. And she's a 1/7 scale, so this figure is 25 centimeters tall roughly, or 9.8 inches. And just for scale, she's next to a 1/12 scale Polynesian and the pop-up parade Kurama. So let's get up close and personal with my waifu. First off, at her feet, I will say that I actually really like the look of these boots. The eyelets that the laces are going in are actually really well individually painted and sculpted even. There's this great cherry red with a hint of maroon that's shading the sides of it, and I've gotta say it sticks out really nicely. This is a boot. And for some reason, the fact that they gave it proper waffling and shading on her sole really does make me happy. And those legs do go on and on. They guide your eyes so well with such a wonderful feminine shape. You want to keep looking higher, especially thanks to those garters, which you can, because you can look under the skirt to find those blue panties and that sweet little bottom. But her legs even have a subtle amount of shading in them, with a bit of a pinkish tone coming through. It's hard to see unless you're really looking at it in different lights, but it's there and it does make me happy to see. Her butt should normally be obscured by this really cool black, gray, and red plaid skirt. This thing looks pretty good, I've gotta be honest. I don't like that it's finished a bit glossy, but overall the fact that all the lines are printed on so clean really does make this thing nice to look at. But that brings me to her belt now, which is a strange little pointless doohickey that she's wearing as an accessory. I say pointless because she's not wearing pants, so it's not holding them up, and the thing is not wrapped around her skirt, it's just kind of hanging around her waist. I guess just for style, but I will admit, it's very stylish. It's really nicely sculpted, to be honest, for being such a small piece. I don't like that it floats around the way that it does because that could scratch the figure, but all the individual studs, eyelets, the buckle, and the chain all look really good, especially since they're painted with that nice shiny silver. For some odd reason, there's a seam in the side of her shirt that's fully sculpted, and not very well. But it's only panel lined like halfway through, and this baffles me. Don't ever do this again. But that further brings me to her shirt, which, as you might have seen at the bottom, is a bit tattered, though it's this gray and dark gray gradient. All over it is also spattered with what I think is the same paintbrush that I have in Clip Studio Paint, which kind of makes me mad that it's so generic, but still, this thing does look interesting. It's well sculpted and decently painted, but I really don't get the shiny finish. But on the front and back, we also have these weird sort of staples that are keeping together a bunch of rips in the shirt. Just adds to that sort of rock and roll punkish style, I guess. You think she did it all herself? And for you weirdo fetish boys, here's some armpit, cause they made it clearly visible. On her neck, Makoto is wearing a choker, which is studded, but also it seems to have a padlock on it. I need that key. And she wouldn't truly be a rock and roll rebel without a red armband, and this thing is well sculpted with a bit of wrinkling in it, as well as some decent shading. And if we trace down, we'll find the black-rimmed red gloves on her hand, which are also similarly well sculpted with some wrinkles at the knuckle. Though I do think maybe they should have been fingerless to kind of add to that rock and roll vibe. But this brings me to the face, which of course is a very important thing with Makoto. The face seems to be very hard for people to get right, and this one, I will say, is really good. I think at first I didn't really like it, but the more I'm looking at it here in post, it looks almost perfect. First off, they got the right amount of hair, with the bangs being pretty much perfectly styled, but then the printing on the actual decal for the face is really, really good. The proportions are all perfect. I'm even okay with the pink lips this time, but still, why the hell are you making her eyes purple? They should be red. How do you guys keep getting this wrong? But like I said, the bangs are really good on this one. I think they're almost perfect. They're a bit chunky, but I think the styling is spot on. And of course, she has her weird little hair braid that acts more like a hair band. Still not sure how that works. But around the back, we can see some more great sculpting in her hair, and even a nice bit of gradient shading, from the dark tips at the bottom to the nice sort of chocolatey brown in the back. Overall, I think they got her hair color perfect this time, whereas the first one was too dark. But all in all, this thing looks gorgeous. Let me really go over the way I feel about this thing, because I've had some time to think. Somehow, I think they got this much more right than their first attempt. I will say that Hobby Japan and Amakuni have learned a great deal from their previous figures. I will say that I really don't like the finishing on this figure. I don't like how flat and shiny it is at times, but the overall paint job on it is superb. There's a wonderful amount of shading that I really did not expect to see. The sculpting, similarly, is really good. Now, there are areas where the sculpting isn't perfect and even bulky at times, but I think they deserve a great bit of credit for making this thing look so nice. My initial impressions of this were that it was going to potentially be a throwaway figure. I was going to get it, box it back up, and get rid of it, but the more that I look at it, the more I think this is a proper representation of Makoto. If we could have gotten this level of production and quality with the previous Makoto in regards to accuracy of the sculpt and all the details, that one would have been perfect. Any figure up super close and personal is always going to show its flaws, but these things are not meant to be viewed under a microscope. For the value of what you're getting here, I think this is a solid addition to anyone's Makoto shrine. Let me call things right down the middle here. I am going to give the Amakuni x Hobby Japan Makoto from Dancing Star Night a solid 8 out of 10. I want to give this more points, but I think that the plain base and some of the bulkiness and bad finishing is what brings this thing down. But those are the main gripes that I have with this figure, of which there are few. I judge these Makoto figures a bit more harshly, mainly for the fact that, yes, I love this character, and getting her perfect is going to be very difficult. But I am not saying that I dislike this figure whatsoever. I think she is absolutely worth the money, and I've actually gotten a bit more respect for Amakuni and Hobby Japan through this review. But what do you guys think? Am I crazy? Was I a little too hard on this one? Let me know in the comments below, or if you have this figure or any of the other dancing figures of the Persona cast. Yo, but can we talk real quick about how Makoto dances, though? I love this girl to death, but she dances like a robot on crack. Watch my girl go. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Alright, before she breaks something, let me get that out of here before we get copyright claimed. Still, we love you, babe. If you did like this video, please make sure to leave a like on it. It does help. And make sure to click what I'm going to put on screen. Watch some other stuff from Makoto May. I also have a Hobby Link Japan link that you can use to buy figures, which gets me a little bit of commission and you pay no extra. Also join the Discord if you want to talk about this hot mama. But with all that, thank you so much for watching, have an amazing Makoto May, and keep on collecting.